Resolute, je li Resolute? Kako izgo... Good afternoon, dear guests. We are welcoming you in the Watcher Post studio in another episode of the Watcher Poll. Now we are going to Madrid to welcome our new guest from Spain, Mr. Ivan Glasovac, founder and CEO of the Resolute Consulting. Ivan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Andrea. Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for your time and availability for today to discuss very interesting questions and challenges we are all facing ahead of the European elections, which are taking place this weekend. As of the next week, we are gonna know who are new or old members of the European Parliament, as well as leaders of the European Union. But at the beginning of this interview, I would like to look a little bit back and ask you, from your experience, what would you mark as key elements and most significant legislative files in the previous mandate of the European institutions?
Thank you, Andrea. Well, I think that this mandate is coming to an end. Obviously there was a big marking of the legislative agenda was marked obviously by the pandemic, but I think that some of the most important legislative pieces that came out, I think, are related to the digital market, such as Digital Services Act. And in general, legislation, regulations that came out that are referring to either the customers or the goods that are being brought into the European Union. For example, the regulation on the Corporate Sustainability and Due Diligence Act, or for example, the act prohibiting products made with forced labor from being imported into the EU. I also think that we saw quite of advancement in general environmental policies coming out in this legislature, from accelerating the deployment of renewable energy to deployment. The regulation of the deployment of alternative fuels infrastructure, and I think these are some of the regulations that were brought, and that we're going to continue to amend, continue to evolve, and continue to work with, I think, in the coming legislature as well.
Yes, this is when we talk as a professionals and when we look into the files, which were very important also to the industry, to the market. I would like to talk about industry itself a little bit later. But now when we talk about Spain, do you think that Spanish people really see the impact of the European Union? Do they feel it? Do they feel like they are part of? Or do you think that there is, willingness from the people, from the industry, from the NGOs, and from other different associations to participate more in the decision-making process? Or they're completely disconnected and they feel like there is something being decided in Brussels, but basically it doesn't touch us, we do not feel it, we do not see it on the ground?
I would, as someone who used to live in Brussels and work in what we call the Brussels bubble, after I had moved to Spain, it really surprised me to the point, I would say, that the citizens in member states in their daily lives are not aware of how much regulation coming out of the European institutions is affecting their everyday lives. More so when it comes to regulation that doesn't directly impact or immediately impact day-to-day lives. So for example, the Single-Use Plastics Directive, which I would say personally for me might be one of the directives that came out that I, as a private citizen, am very proud of and happy that the European Union did. But it does affect daily lives of citizens day to day when it comes to ordering in food, going out, straws, going to the beaches. And this is where I think the citizens can see direct impact. And you kind of have comments, and generally, when something is not according to the comfort of the citizens' lives, the European Union is blamed to it. So you kind of get, oh, well, I can't give you a straw because the European Union doesn't allow it. Or for example, when you go to the movie theater in Spain, when you order a drink now, you cannot have the plastic covering on the cup. And when the citizens ask, oh, well, we can't do it, the European Union doesn't allow it. But in general, I think that there is quite of a disconnect between private citizens and the European institutions. And that comes, I think, from lack of knowledge. I think we see across the European Union member states, it's very easy by member states and the governments to blame Brussels and the European Union when something is not going well. And yet when something is done that benefits us all, it depends on the messaging. Now, to answer your question, I think that there are organizations and NGOs in Spain that are more and more working with the European Union institutions, and they understand that they need to. They also see it as a pool of resources and possibilities. However, there is quite of a lack of knowledge, I would say, among the general population that is not aware of the level of the impact that the regulation coming out of Brussels has on their daily lives.
What could be done better? Like, who should take the responsibility? Is this European institutions themselves, although they organize many visits of journalists, visitors programs, and many others, internships and so on? Or is it political parties or MEPs themselves, commissioners? How can we basically overcome this huge gap when it comes to the information and knowledge that citizens have about the EU?
I think it's both. I think it's both in the national parties and the European institutions. I think that the European Union is doing a very good job in promoting its successes and achievements and policies, but it doesn't. I think it doesn't trickle down to the general population because that message has to be passed through media. And if it's not a type of news that is interesting to the media, then it's not going to be passed. To add to that, I think that we can also see a generational change. I think that MEPs who are younger, they're much more active in their constituencies, transmitting the message of the European institutions and the Parliament, and also more so through the use of the social media. You and I follow a lot of MEPs, and you can really see how, I would say, younger generation of MEPs, how much they are engaged with their citizens or their constituency through the social media. And I have to say, it even happened to me sometimes that I would find out something through Instagram, for example, of an MEP in more detail than I would get it through regular media. So I think maybe with the new parliament coming in, we might see even more of that. as I think a newer generation is coming in. Also, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yes, we are all hoping for to
Mhm.
communicate closer and easier with all the MEPs and institutions themselves. But when we talk also about those who are coming in, could you tell us a little bit more? Now, Spain had somehow recently, elections, and we are now in the campaign for the European ones. How is situation now in Spain? What are the key topics which are being discussed in the campaign, and how are the polls? What can we expect?
Unfortunately, as I think is the case in many member states, the European campaign itself concentrates on a lot of national issues. So in Spain, in the course of the campaign that has been going on, a lot of discussions and political fights and blaming is happening around national issues or European issues that affect national politics. I would say the current situation, political situation in Spain is very tense. There's a very tense situation between the left and the right, um, and there is a lot of blaming and crossfire happening in the debates and in the events. Spain actually has the main election debate happening this evening with 9 parties, and I can tell you already without seeing it, it's going to be a lot of finger pointing on who did what and who did not do something. When it comes to the outcome of the elections, what the polls are saying and how I see it, I think it will be quite a significant advance of EPP party, so the Partido Popular, in these elections, and the ECR and Vox. I think that the PSOE, that belongs to the Social Democrats group, will a suffer a loss of certain positions in the European Parliament. And I'm very interested to see what is going to happen with the more extreme left parties in Spain, because the polls are not really giving them a lot of a lot to be happy about when it comes. So I'm really interested to see. I think in general for this European election, Spain is going to go more towards the right.
This is what also polls predict, basically, for the whole European Union. Seems that
Yeah.
none of the legislative files in the next parliament will be able to pass just with the left coalition with parts of the EPP, but let's see that.
Yeah.
We mentioned at the beginning of the interview industry and industrial policy. So
Yeah.
I would like to focus on that, because there is lots of discussion also when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence, migration, labor force, supply chain of the European Union. Everything goes around industrial policy. So how, from, again, Spanish perspective, but with your also experience here from Brussels,
Yeah.
do you see the future of the EU industrial policy? There were some initiatives. There is within the horizon this Made in Europe proposal that is going on, or we can call it already an initiative.
Yeah.
Where do you see it? And also, very concretely, how we can attract investment in Europe and secure our own European supply chain?
I think that the artificial intelligence regulation that came out, for me, it's going to be very interesting to see how it's going to develop and what is going to be the practical impacts of it. It is, as we know, first of such sort of regulation in the world. So I'm very interested to see what's going to happen. I also think that what we'll see in the next legislative agenda there will be a lot of concentration on a heavy industry that's going to be concentrated on defense. Unfortunately, due to the invasion of Ukraine, we realize that we also all need to be prepared in a way that I think might have been a good wake-up call for the European Union. It's definitely going to help for more investment to come into our industries, and I am looking forward to see the growth in that. To your question, how we can attract investment into the European Union, I'm not sure I have the answer for that. In that sense, I think the European Union needs, or the European Union institutions still need a lot of reckoning. And why do I say that? You asked me what is the situation in Spain in that terms, and I can tell you, for example, that a couple of months ago in March, there was for me, very interesting article in Spanish press where the title said, the United States stimulates, China plans, and the only thing that the EU does is regulates. And I think, as we all know, when it comes to investment, it depends to what level of regulation you have. Sometimes it can hinder investment, but at times it can make a more of a safer environment. I think that we will see a lot of growth in tech and industry just because of the necessities for the defense sector. I also think, this is my prediction, that the very strong concentration that we were putting on green electric vehicles and green electric economy, I think we will see a shift there to a different source of energy. I think that maybe member states or the European institutions are realizing how much of a difficulty when it comes to infrastructure there is and will be to achieve those goals, especially when it comes to electric vehicles, personal electric vehicles. And I have a feeling we will be seeing much more shift towards green hydrogen and different green sources of energy, or more investment into research and development of such sources. That is my prediction. That is how I can see, feel the air. And I also think that would be very beneficial for Spain.
You are exactly there where I wanted to conclude also, when you said, because many rumors have it here in Brussels that basically the next commissioner in charge of all the green issues is going to be coming from Spain, so that we do not say the name yet. Therefore, maybe everything what you said is influenced also with this, and most likely, if we judge by what we hear currently, is likely to be true. Thank you very much, Ivan. We are sending all the
always a pleasure.
All the very best regards to Madrid. This was very interesting conversation and many super interesting insights. So let's see what will Sunday bring to us. Have a lovely afternoon.